before we get to the actual apps that we're going to build, let's talk a little bit about the tools we're going to use, how you set them up, and even just a little bit of history. The first question that you get a lot of times when you start talking about Python, Python apps, Python courses is, what version of Python is it going to run on? Turns out this is kind of a big question. So let's talk about that first. To appreciate this, let's look at the history of Python. In the beginning, it came into existence as a concept in 1989, was released in 1991, had a couple of major releases. Version 2 came out in 2000, 2008 was 3, today is 2016. So development started, version 1 was released, version 2 was released, and then version 3 actually was a major breaking change to the Python code. The developers looked back over those 17 years of experience and said, what was good about Python and what things kind of gave people trouble? What would be a nice way to clean up the language so that it's solid going forward? And they made these breaking changes to Python 3 and expected people to move along pretty quickly. Well, it's today, sometime in 2016, at least when this was recorded, and there's still a debate. Should people be using Python 2 or should they be using Python 3? There's a lot of large code bases still running on Python 2. The majority of large commercial applications are probably using Python 2, even though it's been 8 years Python 3 has been out. However, there is something on the horizon coming in 2020 that is going to make this a much simpler choice between the two languages. First of all, the changes between Python 3 and Python 2 are not that major. If you write code in Python 3, chances are, unless it's one of the advanced features, async IO or something like this, chances are it's going to work fine in Python 2. But there are older ways in Python 2 that are not forward compatible. And I think that's actually the bigger problem. So if you learn Python 3, I feel like you have a kind of more well-rounded ability to jump into either type of project. But that said, in 2020, just 4 short years from now, Python 2 is going to be end of life. No more bug fixes. Not sure about security fixes, but definitely no more support. And to drive that point home, at PyCon, Guido van Rossum, the guy who invented Python, started out his keynote with this, saying there will not be an extension to this policy. This is it. We're only 4 years away for this being an absolutely clear choice. Python 3 is the future, and that's why this course is designed with Python 3 in mind. So in order to do this course, you're going to need to install Python 3. And we're going to talk about how to do that for each of the various operating systems. One question is, maybe you already have Python 3. Maybe there's nothing to do. So just knowing where Python is available, that's kind of good background knowledge. So before we get to the details to set it up on each of these operating systems, let's answer the question. If I have Windows, do I have Python? No. You have no version of Python. Windows does not ship with Python. Unfortunately, it just doesn't. So if you have Windows or you have users who are using Windows, you need to get them Python somehow. All right. On Linux, chances are, at least on Ubuntu, you have both versions of Python. That's pretty awesome. Maybe it's not the absolute latest. Maybe it's 3.4 and 3.5 is the current, but still pretty darn good. OS 10 lands somewhere in the middle. Typically you have Python 2, but you don't have Python 3. A little like the choice between Python 2 and Python 3 is somewhat contentious in the Python community, so is the editor you choose. On one end of the spectrum, you have people that use VI and Vim and Emacs, and these very lightweight, sort of shell-friendly, SSH-friendly editors. And that's actually a very large percentage of the professional programmer population for Python devs. And on the other end, you have IDEs, rich, full-featured, large applications that bring all of your development tools together. Sort of the premier one of those is the one I have here, and the one I'm recommending for the course is PyCharm, but we'll see a few other options as well. So in editors like PyCharm, you can edit, of course, and run your code, but you can run unit tests, code coverage, you have graphical visualizations of your Git history and commit changes. There's all sorts of stuff you can do here. So I recommend that you use PyCharm. When we get to the particular operating systems, we'll talk more about that. But if for some reason you don't want to use PyCharm, there are other options. PyCharm has a free option for the community edition. But if you're on Windows, you can also use Visual Studio and then plug in the Python tools for Visual Studio. That's a nice free option. Microsoft has the community edition of Visual Studio, and then the Python tools are open source and free. So that's a really good choice, actually. Just
just a bare notch under PyCharm, but really good if you're into the IDEs. If you're not into the IDEs, I'd choose something like Sublime Text or Atom by GitHub.